Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone, who are teaching us truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim and Yakwa. Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Kakadash, Brakatam. And so here we are, 2020, and they are already starting to do the Illuminati sacrifices. Now, don't let this be a distraction, like another brother had already put up that video. But nonetheless, though, what are they distracting us from? Well, they're getting ready for a false flag chemical attack, and we're going to take a look at that as well. Yeah, they're planning the next false flag chemical attack to blame Bashar al-Assad, and Gomer and all his bands are planning it with the United States, so they're working covertly. Because Gomer and all his bands, the Ottoman Empire, you already know about them. So, this was predicted in 2017, so predictive programming tells you that they were going to do Illuminati sacrifice to Kobe Bryant.
Oh shit! It's Kobe Bryant!
Help me!
Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out!
Pass!
Oh shit! It's Kobe Bryant!
Help me!
Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out!
Pass!
Oh shit! It's Kobe Bryant!
Help me!
Just pass me the trophies and we'll pull you out!
Pass!
So there it is. Illuminati sacrifice. And this is an update from that, of course. You know as well as I do that even the alternative news can't really directly tell you that it's a, Illuminati sacrifice. However, though, this is what they're saying. Fog likely to figure prominently in probe of Kobe Bryant's fatal helicopter crash. And this is, of course, a site from this. Weather conditions appear likely to come under the scrutiny of investigators probing the helicopter crash that killed former NBA superstar Kobe Bryant and his daughter and 7 others near Los Angeles on Sunday with overcast skies and fog grounded over aircraft. Again, pretty much, though, what they're saying, though, is that, I'll just read it. A S-76 chopper owned by Bryant slammed into a steep hillside outside the town of Calabas, California, about 40 miles. You see, this was his own. Okay, so he owned this, and so you know that was a sabotage. Northwest of downtown Los Angeles, igniting a brush fire and spreading debris over a quarter acre of grassy terrain. Hours later, Los Angeles County authorities said all 9 people aboard the helicopter died in the crash. The death of Bryant, 41, and his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, were confirmed by the National Basketball Association as expressions of disbelief and grief poured in from fans, fellow athletes, and politicians. Yeah, they even put this on the Royal Rumble last night if you watch wrestling. So, anyhow, not to let this be a distraction, you know that this is part of all the bread and circuses, and they do these Illuminati sacrifices. They sacrifice at least 3 to 5 superstars every year. And this one definitely has all the spellings of it. You see the predictive programming cartoon right there. So, now on to other things. And this one in from the Syrian Arab News Agency. Foreign Ministry. Terrorists working to fabricate chemical attack with the support of Turkey. So Gomer and all his bands, as well as the United Snakes, are planning to falsify a chemical attack. Syria affirmed that terrorist groups are currently working under the Turkish support to fabricate a fake chemical attack south of Aleppo and northeast of Idlib in order to frame the Syrian Arab Army and halt its operations in those areas. In a letter sent to the UN Secretary General and the head of the Security Council on Monday, the Foreign and Expertise Ministry said that it had become known to everyone that whatever terrorist groups feel concerned, the White Helmets terrorist group begins staging fake chemical attacks upon the instructions of their masters in Western states in order to accuse the Syrian government of using chemical weapons and create a pretext for a military attack on Syria led by Washington and its allies. So, actually, I guess I take it back. I mean, so used to saying fuckatary when referring to Mike Pompous, so Slovakia for that. You know, because that's what I think of Mike Pompous. Fuckatary, you know. The ministry said the white helmets are the terrorists, and media tools continue to promote fabricated and false claims about alleged uses of chemical weapons, while the states that sponsor and support terrorists ignore all information about the terrorist preparations to use chemical weapons. The ministry said that Syria stresses that what the Syrian Arab Army, along with its allies, are doing currently in the south of Aleppo and southeast of Idlib is a part of sovereign and constitutional right to defend its people and land as per national law, the UN Charter and Security Council Relations on Counterterrorism. So, again, you know, pretty much, though, what they're trying to do is frame Bashar al-Assad so that way they have an excuse to attack. And it's no wonder why this virus is out there, you know, the coronavirus, and like everything else, though, you know, you do look at what they eat, all these abominable foods, you know. I've seen a video on that, and just, it's disgusting what they eat. Hong Kongers riot over plans to use public housing as coronavirus quarantine. As if Hong Kongers didn't have enough of a reason to riot already. Dozens of marketed demonstrators started fires and built barricades, recalling some of the worst unrest of the pro-democracy movement protests last summer. In addition to barricading a road and following district protesters also scattered trash in the streets and hurled patrol bombs at the lobbies of buildings, Bloomberg reports. And you can best believe Mossad is behind these provocateurs, because that's what they always do. Yeah. Because, of course, they want regime change there, too. Hong Kong has confirmed 6 cases of the Wuhan virus already, and the government had announced plans to block travel into Hong Kong from quarantine city. The riots came after Hong Kong executive Carrie Lam upgraded the government's response against the coronavirus to the highest level on Saturday and warned that the outbreak could deepen into Hong Kong's already punishing recession, which of course was caused by the pro-democracy movement and the months of unrest who have only recently begun to die down. Well, and of course, like everything else, we know that this is due to the trade wars. And this one, in hundreds of thousands of Iraqis protest against U.S. occupation. Iraq's parliament voted last month to expel the U.S. troops who have been occupying the country for nearly 20 years. However, the United States government has refused to comply with the order and has threatened harsh sanctions if they are forced to leave. The presence of the United States military is unwelcome in Iraq and the rest of the Middle East, but they have shown no signs of slowing down the so-called war of terror. On Friday, massive crowds of protesters poured into the streets of Baghdad to protest against the U.S. occupation and demanding that the Western terrorists to be sent home. Foreign sources, including Press TV, estimated the crowds at over 1 million, while CNN suggested that hundreds of thousands were involved in the protest. The Wall Street Journal gave the smallest estimation as tens of thousands. However, video and images from the protest show that actual numbers were far higher. The protest came together after the powerful Shia cleric Mustafa al-Sadr called for a 1 million-man march in response to the ongoing occupation. The streets were flooded with Iraqis from different age groups and demographics. Children held up signs that said no to America and no to the occupation as they walked with their families. The crowds were filled with Iraqi flags and signs condemning Donald Trump and the U.S. military, which are the terrorists. And this from the Iraqi president. Iraqis insist on a state with complete sovereignty that will not be breached, serving its people and expressing their independent national will, free from interference and dictates from abroad, a state that guarantees their security and rights in a free and dignified life, a state insecurity and peace with its neighbors. So you can see, though, that, you know, pretty much, though, this is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. This is just the largest and most recent protest in a series of demonstrations that have taken place on a regular basis since last year against U.S. military occupation and influence in Iraq. So they want them gone just as much as Syria wants them gone. But you know this devil doesn't stop. No, because at least their flock, Amalek, is drawing them into this. And this also, and speaking of the at least their flocks, U.S.'s deal of century aims to legalize Israelis' annexation of Palestinian territories, analysts. You know, so take a look at this video here.
Greater de jure control over a much greater area.
Trying to fucking rewind this.
For a much greater.
Here we go.
Well, I think the empire has decided to give Netanyahu and Gantz control over a much greater, de jure control over a much greater area of Palestine. They already control the entire land surface of Palestine apart from Gaza, and now Trump's going to make it what he would call legal. So it's a very black day for the Palestinians, but you know, every day is a black day for the Palestinians while the Zionists are allowed to pursue their project and the Palestinians remain essentially unaided. And my government, the EU, the United Nations wrings its hands, condemns Israel, and it will condemn Israel again, but it will not impose any sanctions on this state, which has as its goal the continuation of the bloody birth of the state by ethnic cleansing, and it sees success as the entire area of Palestine without Palestinians. But I think neighbouring states should be careful, because the appetites of the Zionists will not necessarily stop at the Jordan River. They will expand into the area to the limit of their military power. And at the moment they have the military edge, except when facing towards Lebanon, where the resistance defeated them, of course, in 2006.
And keep in mind, the word Zionist means, and it's an indication that they are something else, that they're not really the Jews. All these countries know, and that's another thing, the least of the flock, the Zionists, who are hated everywhere. They're the most hated of all. The least of the flock drawing everybody into this war. So, a couple more here. IRGC chief, no military commander safe if Iranian commanders are threatened. Yeah, because of course, you know, as well as I do, that, you know, after they had killed him, they pretty much, you know, nobody else is safe. The chief commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said North of American military commanders would be safe in any part of the world if the U.S. administration continues to threaten the Iranian commanders. Major General Hossein Salami made the remarks while addressing a gathering of Basij commanders on Monday in reaction to the recent threats by U.S. officials to kill more Iranian commanders after Lieutenant General Qasem Soleimani, the late commander of the IRGC Quds Force, and the companions were assassinated on direct order of U.S. President Trump in Iraq on January 3rd. In an interview with the Saudi-owned newspaper Ashra al-Aswad on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, U.S. Special Representative for Iran Brian Hook threatened the Islamic Republic with yet another act of state terrorism, saying Washington will assassinate the successor of the late IRGC commander as well if he follows in the path of the martyred general. If Ismail Qani follows the same path of killing Americans, then he will meet the same fate, you know. Which, you and I both know that the only ones that are creating acts of terror are what you call the Zionists. Amalek are the ones that are creating the terror. Since when has Iran gone in and started assassinating people? No, but they want you to believe that, right? So who does assassinations? Who has the fucking drones and uses them as terror weapons? Who uses them in Libya? Of course, the United Snakes. But they have the audacity to accuse others of it. So you already know what they did on the 3rd, you know. And like everything else, though, at least the flux joined everybody into this war because the Zionists are the most hated, which indicates that there's something else. These are the imposters. Okay, and of course, Press TV is also reporting on this. Terror groups planning for false flag chemical attacks in Idlib, Aleppo, Syrian military. The Syrian Arab Army says the foreign-sponsored terrorist groups are making preparations to stage false flag chemical attacks in the northwestern provinces of Idlib and Aleppo to implicate government troops and to invent pretext for possible foreign acts of aggression against the Arab country. Yeah, again, they're quoting from Syrian Arab, because this is exactly what I just read from the Syrian Arab News Agency. Yeah, but there's a little bit more. Here's where there's some newer things. These tricks the terrorists play have become obsolete and no longer deceive anyone and will not help achieve what the terrorist organizations and their supporters want, it added. The international community now knows that the Syrian Arab Army never used chemical munitions and that it no longer possesses such weapons, it noted. In November 2019, Russia warned that members of the Takfiri Hayat al-Sham terrorist outfit, together with the Western-backed so-called civil defense group, White Helmets, were planning to carry out chemical attacks across Syria in a bid to frame the Syrian government forces. Also, I just made mention that Roger Waters, who musician, Pink Floyd, pretty much, they tried to actually recruit him. They wanted him to speak for the White Helmets, and of course, Roger Waters went on RT and spoke about this, and he often speaks on RT. He's going on tour real soon. I bet you he's going to be showing a lot more images of the war, because he likes to make people think with the music and concerts. And he hates the White Helmets with a passion, because he knows what the fuck's going on. Wouldn't be surprised if he's an Israelite foreigner. Via several channels, we received confirmation of reports that militants from the group of the field commander Abu Malik, which is a part of Hayat al-Sham, jointly with the White Helmets organization, plan to carry out provocations involving staged air raids and use of chemical weapons in populated areas of the Idlib de-escalation zone, Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement released on November 26. Back in April 2017, a suspected sarin gas attack hit the Syrian town of Khan Shakhan in Idlib, killing at least 80 people. Accusing Damascus, the U.S. launched nearly 60 Tomahawk cruise missiles at a Syrian airbase, taking the lives of about 20 people, including both Syrian soldiers and civilians. So who are the terrorists here? Well, you and I both know, though, that these are the so-called freedom fighters that America wants to stick in there, because they want to spread their democracy, their lies. And that's the Kool-Aid that everybody's talking about, a.k.a. spread our whoredoms. And as you have to have a laugh here, having a sense of humor, we, the prophets of doom, which we're just reading right out of the Bible, man, everybody has one in their house. They just don't have the correct interpretation, right? So, it just brings me here. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, which is, a.k.a. her so-called democracies. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Yeah, they had gotten into this so-called democracy, and so-called freedom, right? Yeah, if you don't believe in freedom, freedom will come for you. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, her diplomacies, she got bases and everything. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and you not receive of her plagues. And what's that? That's us doomsday prophets, as Chump so lightly put it, are coming out there and telling our people to repent and get away from this so-called whore, Babylon the Great, America, and that to not receive the plagues. Because what's the ultimate one? That America is going to be consumed by nuclear fire. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh hath remembered her iniquities. And that's another thing. We proclaim the name, right? So it's anti-Shemitic, right? To proclaim the names Yahweh and Yahweh. Reward her, even as she rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill her to double. Again, that's the main prophecy of doom right there. Verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord Yahweh who judgeth her. You know, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, you know, all the people that bought into it, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off of the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour has thy judgment come. And we always talk about that final hour. So I think I'll just get that picture because we see it in our camps. This prophecy of doom, this is going to take place, you know, and the bigger camps, I wish that I could hold all those up, but I could only carry the 12 tribes sign like a lot of us are now. 1 or 2 man camps, so you don't get to hold up as many, but the bigger camps like LA, New York, Dallas, you might see this sign being held up by the prophets. The Doomsday Prophets, you know, since we have a new nickname. And by calling us and then saying that they must reject these Doomsday Prophets, meaning that they know that this is going to pass soon, but we're blowing the whistle on it, and we're foretelling of this prophecy to soon come to pass. So I hope all this has been edifying like everything else. Let's not let Kobe Bryant be a distraction to us. Though that is, in many ways, it's like, wow, man, yeah, okay, they did another Illuminati sacrifice. At the same time, though, you know that they can cash you out at any time, and that's exactly what they did. Just like they've done to Paul Walker, just like they've done to Robin Williams and another. I don't believe any of the official stories. I know that the Illuminati, the gutter rats, the Zionist, Amalek, runs that whole thing, and when they pretty much want to cash you out, they cash you out. If you hadn't noticed, though, that even with sportscasters and all that, when they really need a babysitter, you'll see Amalek's ugly fucking face in the midst of them, like they are doing in WWE. You see this ugly fucking Amalekite right there in the middle of the other Jakes that are, you know, just doing your commentaries. You know, what the fuck is he doing there? It's because they're babysitting. So you know that Vince McMahon, WWE, all these sports things have a tight leash on it. You know, of course NBA does, NFL, all of them have a tight leash on them. So either way, though, at least the flock, Amalek is drawing everybody into this war, and they want to keep people distracted. They're planning a false flag chemical attack very shortly here, and we're just blowing the whistle on it. For that, I want to say Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Bashem Rakakadash, Wa Abababal, which means America will be destroyed. Death to America, and death to you 2/3. Shalom. Brakatum Yehovah elect.